Welcome back to the Dream Journal. I'm Patrick Fitzgerald Fleck, and with me, as always, are Matthew Ledger
Hey.
and Mike Drew.
This is a really good brownie.
This episode, we're diving into what may be the most controversial volume of the Sandman, A Game of You. Okay, Matt, give us that synopsis.
In A Game of You, we catch up with Barbie from the doll's house, who is in a bit of a predicament. It turns out there's a cuckoo living in her dreamscape, and that's bad for reasons that are never really explained. Barbie is assisted by allies both real and fictional in her attempt to stop the cuckoo from doing whatever it is that the cuckoo wants to do. Which is something, I think.
I mean, it's not cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, right? That's all we know.
Did not appear to be.
All right.
So
We don't see any evidence of Cocoa Puff's existence in the Sandman series to date.
I mean, doesn't
No.
Lutz look a lot like the Cocoa Puff bird?
Actually.
yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, if they were in this, they'd be like Choco Fluffs or something, right? Because everything's off-brand in this. We've shifted from... I guess because it's set in the DC universe, so it'd be weird if there are Superman comics. But there are Marvel comics in the Marvel universe, so I don't know.
I mean, that's just Marvel, though. Marvel's fucked.
See, I know what the volume is about, but I cannot tell you why the things in the volume happen.
It's a weird volume.
They happened because Neil Gaiman dictated that they should happen.
I think your question is the best first question.
It seems to be leading that way, yeah.
Because we're already kind of talking about it.
You sure you don't want me to start? I can start.
Are you ready to start?
Mike, you can't start. Because you have to think of what your question is first, Mike.
Fine. Go ahead.
If you want me to start with my question, we can start with my question. It seems to be the way we're leaning anyways.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so my question is this volume filler content? And for those who don't know what filler content is, it's...
Most of Star Trek Next Gen story. Sorry, what?
Yeah, it's the side stories to help flesh out run times that don't really have anything to do with the main story. It's just side characters doing side character things or side plots that have nothing to do with the main overarching story, which I feel like this volume falls pretty solidly into.
Oh, so you think it is?
I do.
I have challenges to this, both on the assumption level and on the is it filler content level. Like, I have questions both at face value with the question and picking the question apart.
I would expect nothing less.
Yeah, I mean, here we are. It's our podcast, turns out. So, saying it's filler content in that way assumes that there is a larger structural narrative that's happening that it is filler for, which I think is maybe not a good assumption, given that at this point it's probably still just a monthly ongoing series and those potentially go forever, so you can do whatever you want in it.
Well, we know that there is a
We know,
story.
but does Neil Gaiman at this point know? Because this is like issue 32 or something, I think, of 75. Because this actually jumps 3 issues ahead from Season of Mists. And those 3 issues, I think, get collected in the next volume, which screwed me up when I was looking for background research this morning.
That's really weird. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, like that. The fact that they collected this one ahead of the other one. That's real weird.
Well, I think it's because it's Season of Mist. Seasons of Mist? Anyways.
Mist of Seasons.
Misty Seasons happens, and then there's 3 issues of stuff that's called... Oh, shoot, now I'm forgetting the name of the... Like, it has a name, but I think it's just one-off side stories. It's 3 one-off side stories, and then this happens. So you can't... If you collect those with this becomes like a 9-issue trade, and that's absurd. And if you wait, you put them in the next volume. And I think from remembering reading the volumes, they flow pretty... Like, I don't think it matters that they're out of order, but it made trying to look for these issues, because the thing I wanted to do for this question specifically, actually, is I was trying to find somewhere I could look at the letters pages, if they have letters pages for Sandman, because I honestly don't know. I've never read a single issue of Sandman.
Sure.
I've always read the trades. So I was like, oh, okay, I want to see if readers of the time were, like, reading this and they felt like it was filler content or, like, losing the plot or, like, kind of wandering off track. And I didn't see any letters pages in the stuff that I found online. So, unknown, but
What seemed pretty uniformly agreed upon, this is a side story of the Sandman in all the reviews that I've read. But like you say, it's reviews of the trade and not single issues.
Yeah, it's weird because we get to operate as people who came to it late and read it in trade form and know that from issue 1 to issue 75 there kind of is an overarching story that shows up. It wasn't there from the start, but it shows up, and it shows up actually kind of early, and you kind of see hints and pieces of it. But I don't know when. It's impossible to know on our end when the flip, like when the switch was flipped from it's an ongoing DC book that could go forever, like from 1939 to 2021, to it's a 75 issue story and I'm done with it then. So it feels weird to me to be able to call it filler content using that definition you gave, Pat, because I don't know that there is a larger story that's happening. Like when you guys mentioned,
you say that, but I don't know.
I mean, I do know now, but I don't know at the time if there was. You know,
You're saying you didn't think of Gaiman? I think Gaiman had a story he was telling about Dream, about Morpheus.
yeah, but do you think it's completely ironed out by this point?
I mean, I don't know what degree he felt confident about where he was headed, but I think he knew that the story was about. He knew who his main character was at this point, for sure.
Well, it's not Dream in this book.
Which is why I call it filler content.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also wonder if it is just an experiment to see how little Morpheus you can put in a Sandman arc, too.
What he can get away with.
It feels like weird season 3 bullshit to me more than it feels like filler content to me. And let me explain quick.
Sure.
So my theory with TV shows is season 1 is you establish the premise, you figure out what the show is, and by the end of that season, you know what your show is. Season 2 is usually the best season of a TV show because it knows what it is, but it also is willing to try a little bit of new stuff, and you get like refinement of what already happened in season 1. And season 3 is the weird season where they've done everything they wanted to do in season 1 and season 2, and they feel the need to just like stretch stuff and try really weird stuff.
See, that doesn't fit with the Star Trek model at all, because season 3 is usually where the actual show starts.
Well, Star Trek is abnormal in a way. In that you always have to throw the first 2 seasons of a Star Trek just in the trash, right?
That is true. Anyway, without talking about Star Trek, I think it is filler content. I'm derailing you, Pat Matthew. It is. I didn't read it when it was coming out, and I can see your argument that you can't consider it to be unless you know for sure. But Neil Gaiman's not George Martin. Like he knew where this was going. I don't think George Martin figured it out until halfway through whatever the fuck he was doing. Now I don't know if it was planned to be filler content. Like I really do like this story. Actually, I think I like it more than the last one by a bit.
Ooh, that's a hot take.
I do. I think it's the characters. I like the characters a lot. There's a lot of fun play between the characters in this one, and the fact that Dream isn't in it as much is sad because not sad, but the fact that I like it in spite of Dream not being in it as much that's what I'm trying to say is sad.
I mean, Dream's a dick, as we've established.
Yeah, he kind of is.
Other issues.
I mean, he tries. He tries in this one a little bit. Like we
I was
see,
gonna say, is he a dick in this one?
he tries. He's like, "Hey, I'm actively working on myself. Sorry, guys, I'm putting myself back together." Like
we'll get to that in Matt's question.
fair. Fine. But yes, it like I bought these volumes when we were at Comic-Con, and I didn't know that there were other. I didn't even know until that the trades were collected out of order until you told me right now. Like it's clear that they set it up in a way to tell this story, and I think Gaiman would know very clearly where it's going ahead of time. So yeah, that's my point. My point being, Patrick's right, Matthew's wrong. Move on.
See, I'm not even sure I'm right. I feel like the other thing that Mike just said that I also was feeling was that for it to be filler content, it has to feel like it doesn't matter also. And to the larger story, it does actually matter. I think there's an argument for that, but I'll circle back to that. But other than that, I also really feel for the characters by the end of the volume too. I actually started it, and the first issue was a little bit of a slog for me. Like the first issue took me a little bit to get into, and I was like, oh, there's all these people, and I have to figure out who they are, and none of them are Dream, and what's going on, and blah blah blah. But by the end of the volume, I was really hooked and like really emotionally invested. So I think to call it filler content does a disservice to that a little bit too.
And to be clear, filler content can be good. I just don't think it's the main story of the
See,
Sandman.
filler content to me implies that it's bad. So I guess maybe that's my like part of why I have an inclination to disagree with that too. Because filler content to me is the like the hey that we ran out of stories from the manga, so we're gonna make a new storyline in our anime.
Those story arcs are some fans' favorites. Like Mike was saying, he likes this
Ooze.
story. They're out there.
The other thing I think that is worth noting is that when Dream does show up in this volume, the bits of his character that we get are very tied into what his overall arc is going to be. So I think the light touch of him that is used very well and like positions him in a place where he is making strides that we kind of see hinted at based on his actions in like the 5 to 10 pages he's in this volume.
The fact that he's not angry with the women who invade his dreamland is what you're saying?
Well, there's that. There's also the fact that he doesn't just like banish Nuala to hell for for disobey. Well, not disobeying.
That was a
him,
very
but, like,
weird scene to begin with.
a little bit. I'm gonna flip to it quick because I want to make sure I'm
It's a
looking at it
4-panel.
correctly.
Nuala says, I did a thing I shouldn't have. He says, oh, walks away, turns back, walks back to her and says, you did the right thing. It feels tacked on to me. Like Gaiman's like, oh shoot.
That's where I think he's trying. Like he knows that he's been accused of being distant and uncaring.
No, I
And,
think that's why it's in there. It felt forced to me.
I'm fine with it.
You think that the editor was probably like, "Hey, you need the character Morpheus to show up in this book in this
Well,
issue"?
Nuala just appears on Barbie's TV for a second and says, oh, bad things are coming, which was random. And then that scene is randomly there to follow it up. I don't know. It wasn't
That
doing
also
anything
does
for me.
kind of speak to me about the like. Again, I can't really tell you why this volume happens. So that is a point in your favor, I think, Pat, for like, is this filler content? Because like, I don't understand by the end of this volume what the cuckoo is, where it came from, where it went.
I mean, the cuckoo is just an entity
Yeah, but what
who
and where
fell
and
into
how?
the dreaming.
It goes into the dreaming and then it leaves the dreaming. Where did it come from? What is it?
It's
What is
just
its goal other than just like, hey, I'm
it's just
here
a
and now I'm gonna
fantasy
leave?
creature.
It has no.
Its egg fell into Barbie's dream, and then Barbie stopped dreaming because of the events of Dollhouse. So it was trapped in her dream.
See, but it's not even her dream, right? Like the place exists without her. So is
The
she
land does.
necessary?
I don't know. That gets complicated, yeah.
She's the only one that's currently using it. Without her coming back, it's going to be a lifetime before she. That's my headcanon. Is that
I mean, that's sort of true. They say that this is one of the what's the term?
Aries, right?
Scurries, yeah,
Yeah.
of the dreaming.
Which is defined in the intro in mine.
Yeah, I always start reading the intros, and then I turn the page and see it's 6 more pages of this. And I'm like, I'm not going to read the whole intro.
They're so.
I wish they would be more concise.
I'm trying to think of the word for up their own butt. That's not up their own butt. This intro was actually quite interesting. I usually read them after because I don't like to have.
Well, this one summarizes the whole thing, right?
That's the
what I
thing,
feel
right? Is like most of them are like, "Hey, I'm going to tell you everything about the story you're about to read." And it's like, no, I'd like to read it myself, please. Pretentious. That's what I was going for.
I intentionally skipped forward. Sorry, guys.
How very forward of you, Mike.
I know. It's our state motto.
But yeah, I think you're right, Mike, that this is an older part of the dreaming that is not used. In fact, Morpheus is surprised that he hears things are happening out there. So yeah, I think, but yeah, it doesn't really make any sense why does Barbie hold sway over this cuckoo entity?
Cuckoo, cuckoo.
I don't know.
Like eventually the cuckoo just gets what it wants and leaves, and there's no real conflict, right? It sort of feels the same way to me, I guess, that Season of Mist ended up playing out, where there's a whole bunch of people yelling about stuff and doing stuff, and like bad things happen, but at the end of the day, the cuckoo could have just gotten what it wanted and flown away, and it would have been the same as if nothing had
Yeah,
happened.
I mean, I think there is going to be repercussions, but it's not going to be in our reality. So it's someone else's problem.
So the other bit that makes it not filler content is that there's an ending to a certain section of the dreaming in here, and that is a thing that is worth thinking about going forward.
I see
guess.
nothing, no parallels that would ever be drawn.
But I'd always been under the impression that, I mean, it's dreams. It's not going to be permanent. It would always be in flux. It wasn't
Yeah.
surprising or.
No, but I mean, it's an introduction to that concept on a small scale, I think, to introduce you, or like to get you start thinking about that concept on a larger scale, which we're gonna.
Sure. And I know these characters appear later on in the story, so in that way, it's not quite filler content because they do touch on the main story of the Sandman. But I don't know. My problem is where I don't have a problem with the collection of short stories like we saw in Volume 3, which is called
Dream Country.
Dream Country.
Dream Country. Thank you, Mike. So, like a collection of short stories I can get behind and still say it's shaping the world of the main story because it's only single issues. Like the stories don't.
Yeah, you're not being asked to spend 6 issues worth of time inside a story that
They don't overstay their
connect with
welcome,
you.
right? It's like, oh, this is a weird thing. Oh, that was fun. Now we're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
This one is an entire volume that's its own story. Where, like you were saying, nothing really happens, and like the bad stuff that does happens is because of things happening. Like, what's her name? The witch pulls down the moon, and it causes the storm that kills Wanda.
Did that cause the storm that killed Wanda?
Yeah.
Yes, directly caused it. Like
The hurricane is caused by the lack of moon for like what, the 5-10 minutes that she called it down.
yeah, there was a hurricane and it was leaving, but then the moon left, so the weather just shifted and the hurricane came back, right? Something like that.
Yeah, the tides weren't under control of the moon for a time, and that had destructive results. So
Okay.
Thessaly is directly, it's her fault. She killed Wanda. And the fact that that's not addressed at all is interesting, I feel.
Yeah, before we were recording, Mike, you actually mentioned like we could just talk about how awful Thessaly is. And I don't know if I completely agree with that, but like again, I think Thessaly causes more direct damage in this volume than the cuckoo does.
Yeah.
I didn't put 2 and 2 together on the hurricane changing direction because of that. I for some reason attributed it to other things happening in the book, such as Morpheus's boon trying to return. I thought of it as basically Morpheus just cleaning everything up, like because when the building collapsed, it fixed a whole lot of stuff that they were gonna have to answer questions about, and I didn't even think about it being, yeah, no, that's not actually him. He didn't do that.
I mean, there's 2 or 3 like weather hosts talking about, or like radio hosts saying, oh, this storm's shaping up to be a bad one.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Yeah.
For some reason I said, but I didn't do the math. The math was
Do
hard.
the math. Do the math.
Fine, I'll do it. But no, she's an asshole. Like
She's also a badass, so
she's a badass.
I'm torn.
Like she killed the guy. Like he fucking deserved it. He did. But
George?
holy shit, nailing his eyes to the fucking wall. That's
So
intense.
here's
I
a
think that's just some
question
witchcraft.
actually. Because
Yeah.
I'd kind of picked up on this before, but I didn't go all the way on it. Like, what if George had just won at the beginning and broken whatever locket there was? Like, would everything have just been fine?
Yeah. It would have been all over.
I mean, I don't know for sure, but
Maybe Barbie could have died, I suppose.
I think the cuckoo would have. She said she was going to lay eggs in everyone's dreams. So then everyone would have a cuckoo. I don't know. I don't know what the cuckoo, like Barbie, was she influenced by the, like, bad things were happening to the people that she lived with at the end there. So I guess eventually if a cuckoo laid eggs, it wouldn't be good. But
I
like,
mean, I guess, but like at the same time, I don't. This is, I think, the first volume of this book where I look at it and I'm like, the mechanics don't make sense. Like, I don't understand the fundamental rules of what's happening, and it's actually detracting from my enjoyment of the
Yeah,
volume.
this is the one where you got to like squint and move quick, and it's oh that was a fun ride, and move on to the next one.
And I think it's much more interested in the characters than the plot and it shows. And I don't think
Yeah,
overall it matters that much. But again, especially when you decide that you're going to discuss it on a podcast and you look more closely at it, it starts to break down a little bit.
yeah. I don't know. I don't dislike this volume. I just feel like if this volume were to be taken away and we were down to 9 volumes of the Sandman, I don't know if the story would be hurt all that much.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly a fair assessment.
No, that's not incorrect. Like the story would be just fine. But then again, you could do that with probably a few volumes even. So I don't know. It's
Maybe. But I would argue some of like if you take a collection of short stories away, I feel it's more powerful than just one story being
This one
removed.
story that is 6 issues, but feels like maybe it should have been a short story or a 3 issue thing or something.
Yeah, and I don't remember exactly. I think all of the surviving characters in this show up again. I don't remember exactly how influential they are for future events. I think Thessaly does a thing or two that has some sway, but
I was gonna say, I think Thessaly's a big deal near the end, but
yeah. So I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like you could establish those characters, or it could be other characters that do the
I know
same thing.
Fox and Hazel come back, I think, for Death, but I don't know. I don't remember them actually beyond that.
I mean, there's a reunion at the end of lots of people. So
No, there's not.
no, okay. So yeah, I mean, it's not bad, but I don't know if it's necessary. And it also has some uncomfortable in our day and age topics and subjects that I'm sure Gaiman tried his best at the time to write about. It is interesting that he chose this volume to like focus 100% on feminist topics.
see, that's the thing too, and this will kind of dovetail into my question maybe, is like, I do think you lose a lot of interesting like, not character development, because these characters didn't really exist for the most part before this story anyways, but like, I do, I did enjoy like spending time with and getting to know these characters, and it was interesting to watch them navigate within the story and learn more about themselves. I agree with you overall that like you could easily just detach this from Sandman so far and it'd be fine. So I don't know.
I
I'm
do.
of mixed minds.
What was that again? Sorry.
I'm of mixed minds about it.
Yeah. No, you reminded me of a thing. I was also confused at the similarities between the house of apartments and occupants being so similar to the doll's house with weird occupants, where there was the effeminate gay roommate who was buddy with the main character, and like the creepy people upstairs, the
It's
spider
the
women.
kind of place that Barbie likes to live in, man.
I guess, but it
May say more
weren't you?
about Barbie.
I was confused at the beginning. It's like, wait, who are these characters? I thought this was the creepy spider people. Oh, wait, no, this isn't the same building. It's a little too close to what was written before, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think I did that actually with like, wait, is this Hal when Wanda is
Wanda?
introduced? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I like this character. Oh, wait, no, this isn't. It's too close. It's very interesting that Gaiman just like rewrote the same house.
Yeah.
But
Well, keep
again,
it
maybe
house.
Barbie just likes those kind of living
It's what Barbie likes,
situations.
man.
It's just the way everyone in the big city is in these days.
An apartment packed with weirdos is this Barbie's version of a dream house.
Barbie's dream house. There you go.
I say weirdos with love, by the way.
Oh, for sure.
So shall we move on?
Please do, because I want to talk about the most tragic character of this volume.
Okay. I'm interested to hear who you think that is.
I am too.
So my question actually stems from a discussion we had about earlier volumes where we had noted that female characters get bad consequences for like
And have good
situations that they're
times.
placed in
Yeah.
and are treated poorly, especially in comparison to male characters. And this is, as we noted, like mostly a female and/or woman-centric volume. There's 1 to 3 males in it, depending on how you want to count.
Are you saying some of her childhood friend toys and
Oh,
fantasy
I guess I didn't even
world?
count the animals. I was
I don't know if they're
specifically
gendered,
thinking.
so I don't know.
I was specifically thinking George, Lucian, and then Dream, quote unquote. Although
Oh,
Dream,
you
I was.
include Lucian? Is
Oh
he
yeah,
in this?
he's in it in the background for a second. He
Okay.
doesn't have a line, I don't think.
He just shows. Okay, sure.
So, anyways, I guess the thing I was thinking about is, does this volume with its female and/or woman main characters address our concerns about the outcomes for female characters in other volumes? And we're gonna do our best to discuss this while also recognizing that we are 3 dudes.
Yeah, if ever there was a volume of Sandman that we are not equipped to talk about,
Hey, it's this one.
it's the one with feminists and trans issues all over the place. So yeah, let's get into it.
We
Let's
dedicate.
say, add us. Be nice if you can.
We're trying our best. I would say no. This is not. This is true to form. Gaiman just wrote a Gaiman story.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't agree? You feel
I'm
otherwise?
I'm on the fence. Give me just looking through my volume again, and I don't think it makes up for the previous, just off the wall garbage. It breaks the mold pretty well. I don't know if it doesn't make up for, you know, previous fridgings, but
No, and
it's
that's not what I'm like. I'm not hoping for it to have solved the previous issues. I'm wondering if you would classify it as the same or
I mean,
quote unquote better.
it's hard to judge it starkly black and white like that because
do it.
different characters have different outcomes at the end of this.
Well, I see, even that in and of itself, I think, is something, right? Like, in a book that is 99% female characters and/or woman characters,
Sure.
they don't all suffer horrible fates. Most of them make it out alive, and
Yeah,
like
but
also not in a worse position than when they started.
And even somehow in death, the ones that the one that dies, I think, gets a pretty happy ending, which
I
is.
want to talk about that.
You want to talk about that? All
I
right,
mean, we
but
probably should, because there are a couple
it's
different reads of that, and one is charitable and one is not, I think.
I'm not a fan myself,
you're
but
not a fan? Ah, fuck, I am. Let's talk about it.
Wanda spent the entire issue saying that I'm a woman regardless of what I look like or what genitalia I have. And then her
Fair.
quote unquote perfect ending is to look like a stereotypical Western beauty. She
Okay.
doesn't even look like Wanda anymore. Like that could have
Okay.
been any woman.
Yeah, no, I gotta dispute that. If you're given an opportunity to remake yourself, like I'm assuming is what happened here after death, and just appear as you desire, w- why the hell not? I guess I'm not advocating poor body image,
I
or
mean,
you
it
know,
seemed at the end
ah,
a woman
I
is
don't
more
know.
than looking like an attractive woman. Like
I don't disagree with that. I think that's
and making Wanda into the model that she seems to be at the end seems to detract from like the powerful position that she had throughout this that I don't care what other people say, I am me. And then at the end, that's not her.
I
So
I think I read it as that's what Wanda wanted to look like. Like that's what Wanda always pictured herself being.
maybe, but I don't if you think
I mean, I would
I,
agree with Mike on
I,
this one, actually.
I'm gonna step into shoes that I may not have the rights to step into, but if
make
you
sure
were
there's
a
color in it.
trans woman reading this and you struggled with body dysmorphia and you throughout this you agree with Wanda that no, it doesn't matter. You are a woman, and at the end she turns into quote unquote a woman. Wouldn't that hurt? Wouldn't that feel like a betrayal?
Except she's dead. Like there's no. I see your point, Patrick. It's a good point. I stand
On
on
the
different
surface,
ground.
I see what you're saying, but I think if you look into it a little bit deeper, I don't agree with the message it sends.
See, but even in the volume, like Wanda has taken actions to change the way she looks. Like she talks about she's had electrolysis, she's taking hormones, she's on the fence about the surgery and very scared of it, and like, but I don't think is still like made the decision yet, right? So for her to want to alter her appearance doesn't feel false to me, I guess. Especially in the way she's presented in that like weird pink dress is a bit off. Yes, I
That is
agree.
weird. That's some Kaylee
It's
shit
like
right there.
super feminine. I don't know. It just felt wrong to me.
It's Kaylee's dress from Firefly.
So yeah, that's kind of why I said I think there's a way to read it charitably and a way to not read it charitably because I think the overall intention is good. I'm not sure the execution nails it,
Sure.
which I think is your issue for sure, Pat, is that like if you look at that person like yeah, like looking at it, you're right. Like should Wanda be wearing that like weird pink bow dress?
Well, the fact that she
Probably not.
she tells the gods to stick it up their ass. That's how strongly she feels about her being a woman.
No, she tells George, who's
No, she says
telling
the
her.
gods. The gods could stick it up their ass. I'm
They're
a
sacred.
woman.
They're
after she's
sacred recta. let's be specific.
Whatever, but still, like
and that's after she's
that was
told
a
by George that the
strong
gods believe that
statement.
he's a man. And that's not necessarily whoa, fuck everything. That's a if they believe that, fuck them. Which
Yeah.
no,
But then I'm going to conform to what society deems as. I have a problem with it.
see, I think it's not just society. I think it's what she thought is beautiful, what she wanted to look like. Fuck it, Patrick. We can't stay up till 3 arguing about this, but it's a good thing to argue about.
I will say, Pat, you've nudged me the other way on my opinion a bit, for sure.
You've entrenched me in mine further.
That sounds correct.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about Wanda.
Who else? Well, like Foxglove and Hazel,
Oof.
they're quote unquote better for their time in dreaming. At least it gave Hazel the opportunity to open up about being pregnant,
Eh,
which I think would have happened regardless of whether or not they were in the dreaming.
Well, yeah, at some point you can't really hide that anymore.
So I don't know if that actually could be like.
we don't really get to see the outcome there, do we? Like we just see them kind of reacting in the dreaming yet, so we don't see. I know we see Fox very, very maturely handling the fine, we're having a kid, uh, but we don't actually see them living happily ever after. So I don't know. I don't know if they're better. I think they've gone on a journey and they've returned from it. Maybe.
Which I think the same could be said for Thessaly. Like, she choked out an imaginary bird.
She didn't fucking choke it out. She fucking murdered it. Holy shit. That was
She
death.
she killed George, who at that point was he really human? I don't know.
It was Birdman.
He was an agent of the cuckoo.
Not
I
only
think-
did she
Oh, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Mike.
I was saying, not only did she kill him, she disfigured his body.
I mean, that's
In-
just witchcraft, Mike. I mean,
Okay, it's just witchcraft, but I'm saying if the FBI walks in on this shit, there's several more charges being added right there.
I don't think Thessaly would care.
Maybe not, but it's still it's pretty fucked.
So would you guys agree that in previous volumes, some of our issues with female characters was that they were more objects to be acted upon and or used and not actually agents of their own destiny?
Yes,
Is that a decent summation of our previous issue?
I believe so.
Sure, you're saying like Nada and whatever her name is. I can't think of her.
Rose.
Rose.
Rose a little bit, and then no, the Muse I think is who I'm trying to think of the name of right now.
Oh, sure. Nope, it's not gonna come.
I'll get it. Hang on.
That happens a lot.
The muse of epic
Ew.
poetry.
Calliope.
There you go.
Calliope. There we go.
Calliope, yeah. And also Nuala a bit, who got to do something in this volume.
Sort of. Not really.
I mean, kind of like she, as opposed to being given as a slave, got to do stuff and be rewarded for it. She made her own
True.
choices and was rewarded. So I guess that's kind of what I'm trying. Like, I think that's where I'm trying to figure it out. Is like, in this volume, do the female and/or woman characters, like, are they agents of their own destiny? And I would say overall, mostly yes. Like, they don't
Yeah.
feel like they're plot devices. They feel like they're very central to the story, and the story is about them in a way that, again, the plot itself doesn't really make sense to me, but I care about the characters a lot.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but at the same time, there's characters like Maisie Hill. Do you remember Maisie Hill?
Yeah, see, that's where it breaks down for me a little bit. That's the one where I was like, oh,
Remember
well,
this poor black woman whose crime was only she was afraid of dogs?
she's dead now.
She died.
Who died to save Barbie, I guess?
I mean, yeah, that'd be how
Like,
it was written.
what did Maisie Hill do to you, Neil Gaiman? God damn.
She was
It's
a side
also
character.
unfortunate that the LGBTQ plus character and the black character are the two that die at the end of this.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of LGBTQ plus characters in
True,
this
I'm sorry.
volume.
There are Hazel and Fox Club. Okay,
But
the
no,
trans
I
character
also,
and the
again,
black
I think
character.
there are charitable and uncharitable readings of this volume, but the uncharitable reading is the trans character and the black character die at the end.
Died so the blonde could live.
So that so the wasp can live.
Oh boy. So yes, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, maybe.
I do also think that's the uncharitable reading, and I don't think it's the correct reading. It is worth pointing out, though.
Of Maisie Hill? Or
Well, yeah, like I think the summing it up as, hey, the trans character and the black character die is
but they
very,
do. And
very,
there's no reason for them to
very
die. Like,
soundbitey in a Fox News sort of way.
but how else would you character? There's no reason for them to die. Like the event that is killing them is caused by them going in to solve a problem that they weren't needed to solve. That's
So,
really annoying, right? Like the 4 women do all this crazy witchcraft and are walking the path of the moon, and they get there and they do nothing.
yes, which again, I think is coming up as a problem in Sandman stories more than I remember it when I read it the first time, is like, you get to the end of the story and the end just happens. Like, it doesn't really matter what they did
So it is
before.
cool that like Thessaly does all this really awesome witchcraft and like is going out there to do her thing, but she doesn't do anything. Dream comes in and does it. So in
Yeah.
that way, it's the same as it's always been.
Yep, still undercut for sure.
So yes, I think there is some slight improvement, but I think it's still basically what it has been.
I mean,
Yeah.
Tesla got to kill George. That's nice.
It's true.
And she got off with it. Like there was the thing about the storm is it did package everything up so nicely for them to all get off the hook for what happened. It just that's the part that kind of confused me because it seemed too good to be true. That
Oh, you really didn't like Wanda or Maisie, did you? God.
I'm not saying fuck you, Patrick. It just, but it for the people that were in the dreaming, they got out of this unscathed. So that's why I thought it was it was a little too good for them.
I do
No,
think Wanda's funeral thematically is integral to, like, pushing the plot and the theme in the direction it needs to go for the end. So I
I feel like the theme of this is identity, right?
yeah.
yeah,
Having the fortitude to be who you are.
Yeah,
Which
and
is
at the
why
end,
I
like,
have such problems with Wanda's death vision at the end.
yeah, and like Wanda's family is trying to pick her identity at the end and like thrust it upon her in death.
God,
And we're
favorite
told
boy.
that Wanda gets to have her identity, although we have issue with whether whether that's actually what she would want or not. That bow is just throwing me off now, Pat. You got me. You.
A little much.
Don't I don't disagree. That is okay. We're circling back now, but it could be that that's what she wanted to look like in life. Maybe she never could afford or find a dress that fit that well, and she wanted to really hammer. No, you're right. I don't have an excuse for the bow
Oh,
dress.
Mike, you almost had me.
It's,
All you would have to do was.
I mean, you're
All you would have
projecting
to
on
do
the
was
character
believe.
at that point, aren't you? Like, from what we've seen, that's not.
yeah, you're not wrong, but it's I like I like to read the optimistic view, and I think the optimistic view is that's how she wanted to be. That is how she dreamed that she would be. That's what she desired. That's what she died. I don't know. Fuck.
It's how Gaiman probably intended it to be read, but it feels shallow. Like it didn't fully think it out.
And to that, I'll say it was written in 1993.
Fine, but we're analyzing it in 2021.
Yeah.
Gonna say which both is and isn't a defense, unfortunately.
I know it's not, but
What's interesting to me about this is that in the same volume, the moon says Wanda is not a woman and death says Wanda is, and that's like the contrast between like the larger forces in the universe / world there is interesting to me. That one big cosmic entity can be like, nope, don't have the right chromosomes, and the other big cosmic entity who is arguably more powerful, not even arguably, is more powerful,
she is far more powerful.
is like, oh no, she's a woman actually. She can be whatever she wants to be.
Probably has to do with Gaiman's structuring of gods, of religion, the faith of the people, the what people imagine the moon to be shapes what the moon is. So people like Wanda's parents consider the moon to be feminine, and they consider feminine to be a certain way, and therefore the moon only thinks of women as that.
Moon's a turf. Heard it here first.
I mean, there's lots of
Did
turfs in
actually
this
come
one.
across today like a person who was like, Neil Gaiman, you wrote turf characters in this book. Doesn't that make you a turf? And he's like, you clearly don't understand how writing fictional
You wrote
characters
a
work.
Nazi, therefore you must be a Nazi. Yeah, that doesn't
I'll
make
probably,
any sense.
if we had show notes, I would probably link to that in the show notes because it was a nice dunk. So I don't know if we have a nice, neat answer to my question. I don't know that we need one either, but it was a good discussion to have.
Yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction, but only a small one.
Yeah, your point that Morpheus does come in and kind of just do everything at the end anyways is a fair one that I had not thought as much about as I probably should have.
That is a good point that I too did not really take
Morpheus
into
does
account.
Morpheus things.
I thought about the fact that the plot basically breaks down and there's no conflict that really needed to happen, but I didn't think about
Once
it from that
again.
perspective.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, Mike, do you have a discussion question?
Maybe. I may have thought of another one here, which I think kind of combines the two I was talking about.
Oh boy.
Feel it out.
Right.
Does seeing a minor character like George use the powers of Dream or abuse the powers of Dream weaken Dream's character or make him seem weaker?
Okay, that's interesting because I did not think George was dream related at all.
I mean,
If that makes sense.
he was a tool of the Dream. Of the
No, of the cuckoo, which
Yeah.
came from somewhere else, quote unquote. Right?
Sure, fine.
Or did
Sure,
I
fine.
misread that?
No, you're right. It came from somewhere else that no one knows and nobody knows. But I guess the question would then become, does seeing the cuckoo misuse those powers or access the powers that supposedly only Dream has to afflict others with nightmares, weaken him? As I guess that's... Is it a wrong read? Is it? I don't know. I think it's...
How do you see it as weakening him?
Oh, he's not in control of it. Like someone is causing others to dream in ways that he is supposed to be in charge of, and he's not in control of it.
That's like a Tuesday for Morpheus, though, in this story, though, right?
Like they're still dreaming, right? Like the dream is still a dream. Does Morpheus care if it's a nightmare or not?
I mean, I think what Mike's getting at is those ravens, crows descend, and like, yeah, Morpheus did not choose for those to even exist, and also the dreams they produce are not really his. Like, they're unnatural, because I think my argument again is that George isn't even an instrument of the dreaming. He's an instrument of the cuckoo who is somehow in the dreaming,
Mm-hmm.
but can produce these nightmares in people, like Mike is saying. So
Nightmares that cause Thessaly to go on her rampage. Like it's not a small thing. Like there's a reason that Thessaly murdered George, and there's a reason they called down the moon.
maybe there's a reason, or maybe she just wanted to do it because she's very proud.
Maybe
She did it because
But you saw the
George hurt
reaction that
her.
everyone was having to these nightmares. These were not normal nightmares. Like, holy shit, some of the imagery in there was fucked up. I don't know. Maybe it's an off the wall question.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know if like Morpheus isn't shaping or keeping watch over everyone's dream. People just come into the dreaming when they dream, right? They visit dream.
I mean, when he walks through dreams trying to find stuff, he doesn't know where it is, right? He's just kind of
He just finds whatever he needs.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think like Morpheus wasn't upset with the cuckoo at all when he found her. In fact, I think he had some sympathy towards her.
I think you're
So
right.
I don't know if I think Morpheus is fine with what was going on. He only showed up when he was called upon to show up accidentally. If that didn't happen, I don't think Morpheus would have even shown up in this book.
I mean, he kind of knew he was going to show up, it felt like, when he was talking to Matthew early on.
Sure, there was some foreshadowing, something wicked this way comes kind of stuff, but
I mean, my thought: what would Death do? Let's say someone is misusing Death's power, or somehow someone accesses Death's power to become Death. Like that, it seems.
like the cuckoo didn't create the night, like the dreams were there. They just influenced them. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, you're not wrong, I suppose, because they were already dreaming when the crows got there.
They just twisted the dreams to be something else.
Dream does seem more apt than any of the other endless to just like let his power kind of wander off and do its own thing, though. At least from what we've seen so far, which I guess we spend more time with him, right? But like he made the Corinthian. The Corinthian kind of just wandered off and did his own thing. He made Fiddler's Greed. Fiddler's Greed just kind of wandered off and did his own thing. Like, yeah. And like also in that, I'm looking at that first scene with him and Matthew again, and he's kind of just standing on the shore.
I think he was more angry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, just like he kind of feels like something is going to happen, but he doesn't know what or how. And like it's his again, like Mike's saying, like it's his world. For him to not control it in that way is kind of weird, but it also seems like that's kind of the way he runs things.
But I mean, he was upset with the Corinthian and Fiddler's Green because they left the dreaming. They were in the real world. The cuckoo doing their nightmare stuff, that was still under dream. Like that was, I think that was still within the boundaries of what
I mean, the
Morpheus
birds were
would
in the
say
real
was
life,
okay.
though.
Sure, but the dreams that they were dreaming, the cuckoo is an entity that exists outside of the dreaming.
Well, maybe it came from somewhere and it went somewhere, Pat. So it does exist outside the dreaming.
Yeah, but the
we
dream
just don't know where.
is the realm where the egg landed and hatched, and then it left to go to other realms outside of the dreaming. So its offspring would also be entities that could then traverse. Like the big thing is Martin Tenbones broke free of the dreaming. Like I thought that would be the huge thing that Morpheus wouldn't like, because that is an entity of dream existing in the real world.
Yeah, but again, that's not really one he made, right? Like that's one that Barbara made, I guess. So maybe he doesn't
Sure,
care
but
so much that way.
it's still a
Yeah,
one
it's
of
still a
his,
breach of the boundaries for sure.
which, and I think there was like a comment about something like he felt it when Martin Tenbones broke free or something like that. I don't remember exactly.
I'm just thinking that it's showing definite cracks in his armor, whatever armor might be there. He's not in control of any of this shit. He's in charge of it.
Yeah, but at the same time, he doesn't really care. Like he specifically says, "Why should I do anything about it?" on page
I mean,
27 of this book.
maybe that's part of his own personality is to not want to be in charge of it as much, but it's definitely worth observing that he doesn't necessarily carry an excessive amount of control over even his own domain, where he probably should. Or
I mean, I don't think we've ever seen him have excessive control of his domain. In fact, that's the whole problem that kick-started the whole thing, is that he didn't have control over it.
Again, I don't. It's weird that his power just wanders off sometimes. Like Desire's power doesn't just wander off sometimes, right? Like
Well, is there any other
or Death's
Endless's
power.
domain that could be abused in such a way? I feel like
Death's
Dream is like open, like Dream is crafted to such an extent by mortals, by humans. I like,
probably
I don't know.
despair.
I guess
Maybe,
desire
yeah.
desire does kind of just wander off and do its own thing sometimes. In that, like, we talked about that entire action or that entire volume where people's wants went made the entire volume go, I suppose, but
Yeah.
it's not quite the same thing. It's not like aspects of desire physically manifesting somewhere, sort
I
of.
mean, desire itself goes off and does its own thing, but yeah, I don't know.
Destruction? No. Delirium? No.
Mike might be right with despair, I suppose.
Maybe.
Maybe delirium, but we
Does
haven't seen much of the
No,
other
that's the
endless
thing
at this
too, is
point.
like we'd obviously spend the most time with Dream, and his stuff is doesn't have a great handle on it all the time, Mike. Agree with you
no,
there.
it doesn't.
Like,
Maybe he
how
should.
did
Maybe that's something
how
he
did
should
the
invest
cuckoo
time
get
doing.
there in the first place? Why didn't he get rid of that thing right away?
Like it seems like something he should have known about again. Like this is an entity. Like he made a big stink about the slave being given to him. Like if you're going to be a guest in my realms, you must blah 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 blah. Fine, whatever. But he doesn't even know there's people living in his domain that he doesn't even have any like knowledge of.
And it's
Yeah,
an ancient part of the dreaming at the edge of his realm.
sure, but still, it's in the dreaming. I don't
It's
I
know.
just this
guess.
it's just this house he built for his girlfriend one time.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's right.
It's no big thing.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, Dream has his realm, but we've never, other than Destiny, I guess, has his gardens, right?
Yep, and like Desire has the weird Desire statue it
Dollhouse.
lives
Yeah,
in.
we don't know if
But there
Death
aren't
or
other
Delirium or
people in any
Destruction
of those. Dream is the only one who interacts with weird
mortals.
servants
Yeah.
slash things that he made. No, I'm like, there's no
Oh,
like Desire doesn't have a Lucian. Like Desire doesn't have a Matthew. Destiny doesn't have a Fiddler's Green.
yeah, it's true.
Was that his girlfriend,
Yeah, man.
Yes, he does
Alanora?
say. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a number 3.
I guess it gets into her character more in Overture, from what I was reading.
I don't remember that. We'll see when we get there, hopefully.
So, God damn it, Dream!
Yeah, it's another Nada.
It's a very old scurry that no one visits anymore. Fuck you, Dream! God damn!
I dumped her years ago. I don't know why she's still here.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I don't feel it weakens Dream. I feel like Dream is as in control as he's ever
I
been
say
in
it's
control.
par for the course, but it also is an interesting thought that like his power gets out of his control in a way that I don't think I've thought about for the other endless. Like when you mentioned Death, Mike, I specifically was like, "Oh no, Death would not put up with
No,
that."
Death would not. Death would be like, what are you doing?" And then there'd be some shit.
I think the only endless we've seen take their wield their own power or make their own choices with said power is Desire.
Makes sense.
Like everyone else is just doing what is expected of them,
Yeah.
Doing what they want.
other than I guess Destruction because they've abandoned their duties. Which
I mean,
how does that work?
yeah, that's a thing. And I mean, like you said maybe the question isn't deep, but I think it's worth thinking about, especially going into future volumes where we'll see more of the other endless. Because Dream seems like he is caught unaware by things that he should not be being caught unaware by, and like that's something that I'm gonna watch now for the other endless too. Is like, oh, are they in control of their realm or power, or is it ruling them?
I don't think Morpheus has omnipotence. I don't think he knows everything that's happening in his realm. I think he's just in charge of it.
Like I imagined him as the captain of the starship. And if
Sure.
you're the captain of the starship, you have officers in each of these scurries who report to you weekly, monthly,
But
whatever.
also, there's going to be weirdos like Barkley who's doing strange stuff in holodecks.
Okay, that's why you have these officers on the scurries, making sure you find out when Broccoli's doing some weird shit on the holodeck.
So in this analogy, the cuckoo is Barclay, and Dream by the end of the story is Jordy.
Cuckoo's a weird monster in the holodeck that Barkley accidentally turned the safety protocols off for.
Well, he was trying to do something with it.
Barbie is Barkley.
Is Barclay okay? Oh
And Dream
man,
is
we
Picard.
really need show notes for this one, but it's not happening.
Yeah, Mike, I think your question was fine. I think got interesting discussions. So no worries.
We did it.
And we didn't have to talk about cuckolding, so
We can still talk about cucks if you guys want.
Well, that'll do it for this entry of the Dream Journey. Next time, we'll be discussing Volume 6 of The Sandman, Fables and Reflections.